Welcome to the Guilty Party.
And we're live. Welcome to, is it episode 8 now? Episode 8 of the Guilty Party podcast. I am your co-host, Patrick Madsen, and on the other end, in Fort Worth, we have Micah Labrosse. I'm just kidding. I don't know why I said long locks, but I want it to stick. I'm going for it.
It's not wrong, though.
It's not wrong. Anyway, as always, when there's a few days in between our podcast, and this one later than normal due to my traveling. Sorry for everybody, but home now, and every time there's some days in between this podcast, some major shit goes down. And this week is going to be no different. So we're just gonna get right into this one. Mike is going to start off with the hydroxy Q debate.
Yeah.
So let's get into it, man.
So I think I texted you about this, and I guess you were probably traveling through the shows and everything else. And this video popped up out of nowhere. Basically what happened, and I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember the exact information I thought I had in front of me, but I guess I didn't write that part down. Basically this group called, the Frontline Doctors of America or something along those lines. They hosted this press conference in front of some Capitol building. They didn't have any major networks there like, NBC or Fox or CNN or anything like that. It was just basically independent. They just threw some video cameras together. And basically they came together and said that, to sum it all up, that, hey, you don't need masks. That, it's not going to save you, and that, two, that there is a cure out there for COVID-19, and it's called, hydroxychloroquine. That's a long one. We're just going to hydroxy Q. We're going to just call it that.
Yeah, that's the best thing to roll with, because I hear people say chloroquine, and then I hear just people say hydroxychlor.
Yeah.
Which one is it? Yeah, we'll stick with hydroxy Q. We'll make it cool.
Yeah. So. But basically, just for an overview, like that video came out, and because it was, so convincing, if you will, I guess, and it looks very official, everyone assumed right off the bat that, hey, there's a cure for COVID, that this is it, we're good. And the biggest thing that it drew attention was that it was posted on Twitter, on Facebook, a lot of media platforms, and it was getting taken down. And everyone freaks out saying like, oh, well, they're trying to stifle the truth because, a good conspiracy is, when stuff keeps getting taken down, you're like, oh, well, someone must be thinking this is true and they're trying to take it down so they don't want you to know the truth. So the video gets taken down. Everyone starts reposting it, saying like, hey, watch this before it gets taken down. There's the truth. They don't want you to know that there's a cure for this. And again, I want to preface this before we get into the meat of it, that I'm not saying it's a right or wrong. We'll get into that later. But the point is that a video pops up without any major media coverage, which again isn't a good or a bad thing. It just is what it is. It starts getting taken down, and people start taking this at face value that there is a cure out there called hydroxy Q, whatever you want to call it, and that we're good. We're saved. So, Pat, if you didn't know, we're saved. We're good. You don't have to worry about anything else.
Well, dude, I'm a lot happier to hear that, because for a long time I thought, hydroxy, anything with hydroxy in it was the devil. So I'm just kidding. But here, I want to stop you right there, because what I got to say is I actually don't know what video you're referencing. For people that don't know, and some people that do know that listen to this podcast, I made a post a couple days ago that got a lot of traction over the hydroxy Q debate. And my stance was the censorship that Micah brought up. So my stance on that is when videos get yanked down, the reason that people go, well, this must be the truth, is because censorship doesn't help the counter argument at all. When you pull down somebody's view and you make it one-sided, even though that other side is already going, well, we still don't know the 100% cure to this, and then they're yanking down another side, it just looks like they're controlling the information. So that's all I mean on the censorship thing. And that part I do understand with people, like on the censorship thing, because it just doesn't look good for the counter argument, man. But what I don't know what video you're talking about. The ones I was talking about are many a video, not just one that I've seen where on subreddits, private messages, DMs and stuff, where doctors are getting on there by themselves and sending these around, and they're starting to make not major wave, but they're starting to get around, and then other doctors are filing their support for it and keeping vigilant and sending out their own video. So my whole thing about making that post was, why are we censoring information that doctors are literally going underground to get this information out to people? I don't believe doctors, they want to hurt people, but I believe that they really feel that that it works. And then we've seen in other countries that it's working too. So but it's not working here. Now, one good thing about that post was I actually got to hear from a few doctors. And a few doctors on that post were like, saying that, you got to be a perfect match for it. It'll treat symptoms, but it won't cure the coronavirus. There's been a lot of studies. Studies are still happening and they're waiting on the results. So no one knows for sure. And so that part was like, okay, cool. We're actually having a discussion here, and it's not just bro science. Like, there's actually doctors in that thing. But not one of those doctors could tell me if it was okay or if it was right to censor the information from the other doctors that they didn't share that opinion of or support their opinion. And I'm like, this is the problem here, is nobody knows, so you can't just cut off one, because here's the thing, with hydroxyQ, it has proven to work for some people, and that's the thing.
But not everyone. And
exactly.
And here's the only thing, like, I worry about, and again, if it is an actual like remedy to COVID, I'm all about it. It's very dangerous though when you just throw out a medical solution and not knowing the repercussions if you're not a viable match for it. So I mean, I don't know if you know, but HydroQ is basically it's an over-the-counter drug. It's mainly used to treat malaria and lupus and other things. But the problem is there are some side effects, that includes, if you got a skin condition, it can worsen that. There's possible eye damage to permanent eye vision loss. It can cause heart disease. It's uncommon, but it is severe from when it happens. And so it's like, okay, fine. If you think you have and you go rush out the door to CVS and go pick that up, if you're not a match, you could, in fact, hurt yourself more. And so again, I don't agree with, pulling or leaving it up there. I think the biggest thing is when you put that type of information out there, whether you mean well or not, there's going to be some person who's not going to do their due diligence and research on it, and they're going to get it, and they could end up, killing themselves or doing something worse. And it's like, it's a very sticky situation, pretty much.
Yeah, and dude, I hear that side of the argument, like I really do, because I get it. It's like you could take this and it could be potentially more harmful to you than what you have. Like I get that argument, but my thing is we keep now hearing, and it's almost like the counter argument to hydroxyQ is demonizing it. So now we're hearing all the bad shit it can do to you. Well, here's one gigantic problem: is it's been around for 15 plus years, if not longer than that. And if it can do all that bad shit to you, why the fuck is it an over-the-counter drug?
Oh yeah,
like that.
No, I
you
get
know what I'm saying?
that.
Like if it can do all that bad stuff to you, like worsen your vision, worsen your skin condition, like then why were we for 20 years, if not 15, selling it over the counter? I mean, a lot of this just becomes a little scrupulous to me. It's like there's a demonization on something that is low profit is what it comes off as. But I also get the counter argument to it that it could be harmful to you. But this is where these private doctor videos come in. And also, shout out to the doctors that commented on my post. They were also saying that it can work for you and treat these symptoms if you're a good match. So if your doctor is going, you are a good match here, like I'm urging you to take this, but then they're still going, no, you can't do that, then I see why these doctors are taking to private chat forums to get,
and I agree with that 100%. I'm just saying, like, hey, if your doctor is saying you're a match for it and they recommend you do it, I'm all about it. I just think
yeah, but they can't even do it now. They can't even do it because like the private videos I was watching where these doctors are so mad is that they want to give it to some of their patients, if not all of them, and they can't even do it because she couldn't even, like one of the last videos I saw, a doctor prescribed it to a person and she couldn't even get it at CVS. So they're shutting it down. So it's like, even if it does work, which it's proven to have worked for some people, you're right, not all. Even if they can get it or they're prescribed it and they're a perfect match, they still can't get it. Now that I feel is a problem because it's like, okay, there's obviously no solution out here, but there's my doctor saying there's one. It's proven to work for other people. It's almost like a test operation where they're like, like you got to sign this waiver, but we're willing to bring in a doctor from out of network to do it. It's almost like one of those weird things.
And you're right that they shouldn't just shut that down because I've not seen any studies or evidence that people are dying right and left or they're getting really, really bad symptoms from just taking it. So that I don't agree that they should just stop production on it or ban it from being sold over the counter. But at the same time, it's very. It was just one of those weird things. It's like people have to do their research. That's the only thing I'm saying. Like the things I kept seeing people do that day was just repost the video blindly and like saying, "Hey, this is it," and I'm like. Guys, if it is the case, that's dude, awesome. Yeah. But do your research. Don't be just reposting because what if the one person that you reposted to didn't do their research, they're not a good match, and that that they get the hydro Q and then they take it and it doesn't kill them, but it makes things worse for something they had. And so it's now you're not being a responsible person. Like if you're gonna do it for you, that's great. That's fine. But now you're putting that responsibility and the safety of others at risk, and that's the issue I have with if you're not going to do any research.
Yes, dude, and I totally get that. Like I can't stand the person that just posts it and then, or like how many times have you seen that person post an article? And it's a clickbait article, and it's almost like a Babylon Bee.
I've got so many snapshots
to
send you. People just posting stuff, and I'm like, I do a one search, and it's not true at all.
Exactly. That's the evil of social media is these clickbait titles that feed your dopamine levels. So you click on them, or you don't even click on them. You just see them, and you're like, that's it. That headline is everything that supports my agenda. I'm rolling with it. So here we go. So you're right. It could be harmful. But it in the state that we're in, as far as like harmful posts or putting out wrongful information, the state that America's in, or just social media or the globe, where we're fighting an invisible enemy and we have literally no progress in information or tactics to take against it, then people are fending for themselves. And when you fend for yourself, you're going to want to help your brother out. And so you don't even know that you're being harmful and you're posting this up because you know what? There's no answers, but I trust my gut feeling. And hey, brother, I want you to listen to mine. And so they, because I want to help you out. So I see there's like good intentions in it, but you're right. There's a little bit of ignorance because if you're not going to research the shit you post, then you're not helping society. So that means you're harmful to it.
Yeah. And again, like if I got COVID tomorrow and there were some studies, or if some doctor, even if someone I just happened to knew wasn't treating me, said, "Hey, listen, you don't have to do it, but I'm recommending that you take this because I've seen it work personally." There's a chance I might go out and take it if it that person was reliable and to my information. But if someone just posted on the internet like, "Hey, you should go take this," again, like. Science at the end of the day, it's just one of those screwy things. Like it can help you and it can also not help you. But I don't know. It's just it's one of those sucky things because it's like I saw this the other day where it says a study confirms that you can make anyone believe anything if you make it look like a screenshot of a news article, and that is such a detrimental to our society right now because that's the state of the world that we live in. You repost something and it's supposed to be true.
Well, that's the problem with imagery, right? And you have a whole platform called Instagram that profits off of imagery. And so you make this grandiose post or you make this information, even if you're not behind it or it's false or you're still 50-50 on it, you make it grandiose and all of a sudden you got a support staff, And it's literally, and this is how these clickbait freaking articles, man, they make that ad revenue is because they put it out, make it juicy and make you click on it. And then most of these people don't even read the articles. No. They just click that thing or share it or or they're looking for the cliff notes and they just graze through it, but all that did was support that clickbait thing that's really detrimental to society because they're putting out wrongful information just to get ad revenue. And so, yeah, dude, that is the game we play, but that's what happens when social media is your number one go-to for information, you know? But also, that's not a bad thing because mainstream media fucked that up for everybody because of their unhonesty and how they operate and stuff. And I'm not trying to skip over subjects because I want to stay on this hydroxy Q thing, but how there's a whole sex ring thing going on and there's crickets about it, dude. And everybody is in on this as far as social media, digging up all this information, and everyone's kind of becoming their own news agency. You know?
Oh, no, yeah, 100%. It's one of those things that it's just not popular. And that's the thing right now is unless it's a popular thing that sparks something, that there's major coverage, whether it's major media news or social media, it's not going to get the attention that it needs. I mean, I was doing some research, you know, about the sex trafficking here in just North Texas or Texas in general. The amount of, you know, I think it's like 300 people per day are sex trafficked. And it's not just an adult thing. It's a good majority of kids. There's a breakdown of, I'll have to send you this information because I meant to last week. There's an organization here in Texas that that's all they do, and they kind of break it down into you know, the different types of people, you know, the ethnic groups. You know, it could be happening in your neighborhood. That's the crazy thing. I mean, I was listening to a podcast with Dr. Phil. And for those of you who don't know, I mean, he's got his own, you know, TV show, of course, but he's got a very interesting podcast where he has different people come on. He's at everyone from, you know, it's similar to Joe Rogan, where he's got different people from scientists to prosecutors to celebrities come in and talk about it. And he had someone come in and talk about, you know, sex trafficking. They're like, hey, this thing is not abnormal. Like, it could be happening in your neighborhood and you wouldn't even know it. And it's crazy.
Literally, like right before you called for some pre-pro on this podcast, 15 minutes before you called, a big ring in Germany is now outed for sex trafficking young minors. And so now this has always happened globally, but now, I mean, you see these private investigations going, the Ghislaine Maxwell thing, everything that happened to Jeffrey Epstein. We thought it just hit America. This thing is blown nationwide. So now the world is fighting sex traffickers at an all-time high. We always really have, but never really this publicly. And we're fighting this invisible enemy, COVID. Yeah. And so now we have, dude, like, I can't remember. I mean, I'm only 30 years old, but I also talked to my parents. They can't remember. And once I, you know, in a blue moon, which I need to do more, I talked to my grandma, and she feels the same way, that no one can really ever remember when America was this stressed or had this much tension because of all of the things that are coming out of the woodwork. I mean, you got the sex trafficking thing, you got COVID over here, you got the Maxwell case that is literally, I think, connected to all of it. Because you expose filthy politicians, I think you start to dig in, and you kind of get into the further fabric of this disease or this virus.
Right.
I really think she's a key point into it. I think what really blew the door off the hinges, if you will, is the Epstein case, or I mean Epstein dying mysteriously. And that's kind of what's tipped off everyone into this, like, okay, we need to be really confidential about how we act from here on out as far as the spread of information. Mm. We need to be working together. There's a thing called the QAnons out there, and they're, you know, secret society fighting the dark society called the Cabal. And these are all real things, and they sound like something out of a fucking Dungeons and Dragons like game. But
before we get too much into that, let's wrap up Chlora Q.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we're on hydroxy Q.
I know you were talking about how and I've heard this as well, that it's supposed to be working in Europe. So I got some information that kind of want to read off to you and then hear your thoughts on that. So so European governments, they've moved on Wednesday, or maybe the last few Wednesdays, I can't remember the exact date of the article, that they're halting the use of anti-malaria drug, which is hydroxy Q, to treat COVID-19 patients. And the second global trial has been suspended. So secondly, the British medical journal The Lancet has reported that COVID patients receiving hydroxyQ were more likely to die and experience dangerous irregular heartbeats. And again, these are from journals, from articles. This isn't like firsthand knowledge from doctors on the front lines. It's kind of harder to find that information in Europe, so bear with me. They're also saying that large-scale testing is still needed to verify that the patients who are surviving from hydroxyQ are not isolated incidents, and that maybe they got lucky or it's coincidence. So that part I kind of do agree with, because it's very easy, again, from a science standpoint. I mean, this goes back to when you and I were in high school and learning about like placebo effects and stuff like that. Like, you have to test a good amount of subjects or, trials in order to make sure it's not a fluke or it's just, different circumstances that made that outcome come the way that you wanted to. And then the cool thing is the UK is leading the charge right now on clinical tests for this drug hydroxyQ for COVID. So there's a lot of like information that's going back and forth. Again,
hold on, say that one more time. They're doing what again?
They're leading the charge on clinical tests for hydroxyQ for COVID. And that's the UK.
And so so I've also seen articles too that say this, and this is back to the media game we play. And I've also seen articles that say the reason that Italy had that big decline in cases after they had that huge spike was due to hydroxyQ. And so there's all this strange misinformation out there, and this is the gambit we play, is we don't know which one is right. And never did we really. I think we always just trusted it because of a source. But now we're starting to see that there's literally conflicting information in articles for everything that we dig up. I mean, who's to say that the article you just said wasn't 100% right? And who's to say the one that I was just spouting off, which was they were saying in Italy, hydroxyQ is a big reason in the decline.
I've heard the same thing too. So it's a lot of information out there that it's very hard. And that's the thing, like right now, because we live in a tech age, it's very easy to manipulate information. Like I was sending something to a couple of my guys in a group that we're in. And they're like, listen, man, it could be true, but it's really easy to go into that web page and edit it to make it look like that. And I'm not saying that's what's happening in these articles. Yeah. I'm just saying in general, because there's a lot of mistrust, and, our social media and our news reporting outlets of like what's true and what's not. And there are some people that they do it just to be funny. They think they're playing a joke and it's actually harming things. So again, it's really difficult. I really hope that, that maybe this is something that can be used partly. I mean, I've heard that we're still like 6 to 8 months away from a vaccine for this. And it's like, okay, but even when that comes out, like how much testing have you actually done? And at the same point, it's like, okay, who are we supposed to hopefully trust? We've said that the WHO is, a crock full of shit or whatever it is, and now our CDC is like, is that something that we can trust? Are we supposed to trust the doctor down the street who claims that it's right, and then the doctor across town's like, no, that's not right? I mean, holy crap, man.
it's dude, you're 100% right. This is exactly what I'm saying. It's a little hard to trust the WHO and the CDC after conflicting information on their own accounts, how they were putting out articles that were like, if you're asymptomatic, it's really rare now. And then it was like, well, hold on, weren't you making us fight against the ones that were asymptomatic? That was the big scare. And then they come out saying that, we redact that information. One of our sources was wrong. And I'm like, okay, you literally just lost all trust at a world that's at an all-time high in stress and fear and an invisible enemy. And they're relying on you as the source of information to, one, give them peace of mind, but two, give them a good tactical advantage on this thing. And now you're coming out with conflicting information. I mean, not that there's a body count, but how many people were affected just by that 2-day article regime, right?
Oh, man.
That was conflicting.
It was ridiculous.
And so they lost a lot of trust there. And now a lot of people have put in their sides to, and this is always going to be the case, but they've put it into right. If you're right or left has a certain standpoint.
That was definitely the case that day.
But the problem is with right or left now is you got doctors being drafted to the right and you got scientists being drafted to the left. So now it's a bipartisan game again. So now you got scientific community that's painted as blue in the left, and you got doctors who are painted as red on the right, and now they're going at each other. So the scientific community is debating with the doctor community, and it's like we should all just be working together. Well, people are like, well, I trust a scientist over a doctor, and I'm like, well, you're trusting science, which is literally covered by a safety net called a hypothesis, and then but you're saying that a doctor who literally they're on the line if they kill a patient, like they can be sued personally. So there is some accountability, at least with a doctor. Now, I'm not saying that you should trust one or the other over the other. The whole thing I'm saying is, why the hell aren't they working together? It seems like everybody is picking a side right now and working against each other. And that's exactly why there's no progress. You got news things doing the same thing. You can find a counter article for everything. You got doctors and scientific community going at each other. And as always, now you got the red and the blue, the right and the left, and it's all coming up in November, dude. I believe this is all a big thing for November, and not just the elections, man. I just think November is going to be a hell of a month.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of stuff that's building up to it. I mean, we haven't even gotten into the debates or the official like presidential campaign. So
I'm not gonna lie. Maybe it's just because it's so hard not to be pissy in the state of things in the U.S., but these debates are going to be lit, dude.
I hope so. They've already canceled one, so I'm like, come on, we're at this point, we're just watching it for entertainment. I mean, I think,
dude, I think it's only going to take one.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now that all Americans are at the point where like, hey, we're not really happy with. I mean, okay, let's be honest. No matter how much you try and how nice you are as a president, or how benevolent, whatever you want to be, people are going to hate you at the end of your campaign. I mean, or your presidential term. So I think we're 100%. At the point now that we both get like, okay, hey, we are the ones who got us Trump elected. We are kidding ourselves when we say Biden is the answer. We're like, okay, well, we're really looking for who is going to be his VP. Because that guy is going to die, mid-office, and that person, whoever's VP, is going to be the actual president if Biden wins. So,
well, let's stop right there with Biden. I mean, I think with all of this sex trafficking stuff, even if he's not connected to it, it's really hard to support a president that sniffed and kissed on that many kids, and it's all on video, and it's all at the fucking podium.
Oh, I mean, it's but people don't care about that. I've heard so many people say they're like. Well, and they're like, well, so you would take Biden, who does all that stuff, over Trump, who just says stuff you don't like, and they're like, absolutely.
Yes.
Like,
now that's the party.
I can't change your mind, but it's just surprising. That's all.
It's the party problem, and also we've set a precedent in this world that a perfect person, a person with no sins, a person with no Twitter, because you always get into trouble on Twitter, and a person with no social media or no success really in their life where they had to undercut somebody or make an ambitious maneuver. I think that we've set a precedent for finding the most perfect person that doesn't exist on this world, or it doesn't exist in this world, to run for president or be the president, because you're always going to find something on the person that you put up in there because they're human. You're always going to find people that don't support him, so there's always going to be a case against it. And there's no such thing as the perfect person or the perfect president, which is why we have a chain of command. We have the House and the Senate. And the problem is we have politicians. We focus so much on the president that we have politicians that have been career politicians for 25 plus years, 30 plus years, in some cases 40 plus years. That's a problem, man. Look up their track record. If they ain't getting shit done, why are we allowing them to stick around? Because they're clearly there just for their own comfort. Oh, and if they are going to bat, then 47 years you've been in Congress, 40 plus years you've been in Congress, and now you're going to bat. It seems a little ambitious to me. And this is the shit that's really hard to get to the common person that is just watching with a watchful eye. This is the hard part to support in any of those people that have been career politicians. And now they're trying to. You know who we can agree
that that should not be president? I think we can all agree, and based off the reception I've seen online, is Kanye West.
Bro, don't hate on my man Kanye.
Listen, man, I love him. I thought he maybe had a chance, but
did you see his speech?
Yeah, about wanting to give everyone with a baby $1 million, which I'm all about, so that's fine. But then he goes on this thing about Harriet Tubman didn't actually free slaves and a bunch of other things. I was like, hold on, man, that's not true. I mean, there is so much.
Tell me he's not Alex Jones. Just looks different.
Oh, he's 100%. He's a crazy black Alex Jones.
But he makes killer ass music. So if Alex Jones stepped his game up and made good country music, I don't know what he listens to. Maybe we'd like him more.
Yeah. But it'd be one of those things. I mean, because he does have a bipolar disorder, and this isn't the first time that we've seen it. He's had some type of incident every time there's been like right before like an album release or a product line drop. So it's just I don't think that's a great quality to have as president. I mean, whether it is or not, he's missed so many of the actual things to submit information to qualify that he's not going to make it through.
Well, check this out. If he was president, I mean, this would be the biggest gambit of finding information on a person ever. Like they would have unlimited resources of crap to talk about Kanye as a president.
Oh,
so, I mean,
yeah.
Even let's just give him the benefit of the doubt. Say he had world-changing, if not globally changing ideas that he brought into the White House and wanted to get passed, right? Say they were on par with being like he could be one of the greatest president if he got all this bill passed.
Sure.
You're still fighting against the other party, and now you're fighting against social media, and now you're fighting against parties, and I should say parties, that have infiltrated social media. So now you run the gambit of the smear campaign for all your years and everything you try to do that's progress. And now you get a guy like Kanye in there, and let's say he has the best policies. You're never going to see him. So it doesn't matter who you put in there that has the best policies anymore. We've gotten to a point. It would just be like
Trump, just a little bit worse in the sense of, the dirt they're trying to bring up to him, who he's trying to cater to at the moment. I mean, that's all it would be at this point. I think we've seen that, hey, if we can get Trump elected, who was, the host of The Apprentice, and we're doing Kanye West, who, basically has Adidas and, his own, music line and all that kind of stuff. It's no different. Like, right. It's like great. Yeah. I love that you have great ideas and ideals. And honestly, if it weren't for his bipolar episodes, I think that he would have some great success just because he's always been the kind of guy that, hey, you've told me that I can't do that. Watch me. I think that he would be the kind of guy that would try at least to get his ideals across and put in place in legislation and all that kind of stuff. But, like you said, when you're fighting against a two-party system pretty much, and it's either my way or the highway, you're going to find, a wall in front of you either way.
Well, the thing is, man, is now there's just so many dirty schemes that are played in Washington, D.C. has just turned into an all-out, just straight-up silent warfare, like area. I mean, just for all the politicians, you got smear campaigns out there, you got fake things to make this person look bad. I mean, maybe it's because I've been watching House of Cards again.
Oh, but dude, such a great show.
I know, but it paints Washington in a really bad light because you see how easy it is for these politicians to ruin somebody and gain a position or make progress on their bill. It's like, sorry, I'm going to bribe you here. Oh, you won't accept my money? Well, then here's a blackmail thing. It's like, what? I haven't done that. And then they take a picture and then they plant the thing in the background. It's like, well, no, you didn't, but everyone's going to believe you did. And it's like, dude, that stuff is probably happening up there. And if not probably, it has in the past for sure. Yeah. I mean, there's been so many. I mean, dude, you had a president, Nixon, with the, Watergate thing. Or
people forget that's so easy, and it's like, hey, that wasn't that far away. I mean, that was back in the late 60s or early 60s, something like those lines. It was only 30, 40 years ago, and that was an intense thing where he got impeached and out of office. So it's it wouldn't surprise me if something crazy like that happened again, and people are like, oh, well, that could never happen. I'm like, did y'all forget about Nixon? Like, it's literally
what
in the
I
history
love.
books.
Yeah. What I love about people, dude, like your common person, is they really want to believe that Washington, D.C. is just full of hardworking Americans that work for your best interest, and they get up every day to sign that bill for you so your district can get 20 million jobs at the shipyard. And it's really not the case. It's like these people have been here for forever, and they're doing things that are advantageous for them and their party and their position, and, you know, also their financial stuff, you know, and there's financial security. So there's a lot of shady shit that really goes on there, but they're really the most powerful people, so who's going to tell them no? And so that's why it's a dirty game back and forth, and that's why you got the party thing. It's like, yo, I know what they do, but we can do it better. And if it's not like that, it's like, yo, I know what they do, so let's take them down. And we hope that that's the case, but it's really kind of like, oh, they're playing dirty. Well, we got to play dirty to get back, and so it just becomes fire against fire.
It's just a balancing game. That's all it is. At the day. You've got one hand where you're trying to balance keeping your seat in power and you know, keep up with everyone else, and the other hand you're trying to, you know, appease your base or whoever you represent, and usually it doesn't, you know, go well in balancing on that side. But, you know, it's going to be like that for a good while until we actually make some changes. I think not only as, you know, a nation, but individually. I mean, we've got to start, you know, coming together. And right now we're divided on the sense more so than ever, that I think, from a political standpoint. And so I think, like you said, I think November is going to be a very interesting time, especially since, did you see that Trump's talking about pushing the election back until things are in a better spot? And I was like,
that's just crazy. I didn't even know he could do that.
He can't. So I don't know.
Oh, okay.
From a legal standpoint, he can't do that. That's a set from Congress and the Senate, I believe. I don't think you can do a presidential sign off on that.
well, so,
I mean, maybe he doesn't know that. He's like, I'm going to try it anyway.
Well, what if the next step is just him being like, you know what? Nah, I'm just going to be president. Y'all can just figure it out. You know, well, you can't do that, Trump. You have to have an election. He's like, nah.
He's like, well, I just placed a call to all the generals. The army says I can do it. So what are you going to do?
What are you going to do about it?
You defunded the police. They're not going to come arrest me.
Yeah, dude, it's just wild. In the November's what it's all gearing up for, man. So, you know, besides corrupt politicians, besides the debate on if hydroxyQ will kill you or not, or is good for you to use, Ghislaine Maxwell, she's still doing her thing.
Well, how about we let's switch it up to talk about something a little more positive before we hit that, because I know that's going to be a big one. Let's talk about sports for a minute. And I know you're going to be really surprised about this. I'm not a huge sports guy, and I think most of the people that I know and have played with know that. I mean, the first thing they say is like, "Who's your favorite team?" I'm like, you know, the Cowboys when they're playing or winning. But
well, that's how I know you're not a sports guy.
you should know. But over the weekend, dude, I watched the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance.
Oh, come on!
Holy shit, that is amazing. That dude had so much work ethic; it blew my mind. Like
my favorite thing about it was that no one knew how much of a dick he really was.
I know. But it makes sense. Like, you don't have that drive and you can't be nice to everyone because like that's just the way you are and you're built.
No, but it made all those players better. And you got to think, dude, and you probably don't know this. I don't know if you do or not, but one of the guys that was on his team became a coach for the Golden State Warriors, Steve Kerr. Yeah. And because of all that stuff he put him through, all that hazing in practice, he made him become so damn good that he started relying on him in championship games, playoff games. And then that guy becomes one of the most successful coaches we've ever seen in present day with the Golden State Warriors. So he was a dick, but he was a really good dick.
Oh, yeah.
That made his players way better. And none of them were really ever the same after he left. And that in that team has never been the same after he left. So it's like once in an era player that guy is, or it was.
Yeah, well,
probably still is.
Oh, I believe so, 100%. But the weird thing is, like, growing up, like as a kid, you always knew that as Michael Jordan, he was the best, you know, basketball player in the league.
For sure.
But this documentary really opened my eyes into one. He's not just the best player in the league. I think that work ethic made him the best, you know, player in sports in general. Just because, like, yes, he didn't have the highest stats. He didn't have, the greatest, craziest moves. But he was the most consistent, and he would do whatever he needed to do in order to make that win. I mean, there was one part of the documentary where he talks about they had, I guess, after a game, some of the guys were working out from the other team, and one of the other players said some kind of snotty to Michael. And Michael's like, okay, I'll show you. And years later, they asked him about it. He's like, no, I made that up because I needed something to get me in a pissed off mood to win the game the next day. I'm like,
well, he knew his mentality.
Yeah, but you don't see that anymore. I mean, yeah, we see a lot of great players. And again, like I watch from time to time, but that documentary really opened my eyes to like what it took to be the best and the height of, a really solid player and that work ethic. I mean, I think one of the last games he played, I think it was like in 97, he was so sick, and he still finished the game. Like most people would have been like, I'm done, tag someone else in. And he's like, nah, I've got this. And I'm like, it's a new appreciation
no doubt
for your work ethic. Whether you're in sports or something else, like that's the kind of work ethic I would want to have besides being the ginormous dick.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that kind of goes with the territory is what I was trying to say is like, it goes with the territory when you're that good and you're that driven and the guys that are surrounding you are not picking up the pace, you are going to naturally exude your leadership qualities. And however that comes out is just you being unique to you. So I think we could all agree that Michael Jordan, one of the best at work ethics, one of the best players, if not the greatest player to ever grace the court. I think, in my opinion, that when you watch that documentary, it hints on something very serious that today's players have to go through. And I'm like a broken fucking record on this podcast, but it's social media, dude. So in that documentary, you watched when Jordan's father was killed. Yeah. And he had to find out, He found out through, I think is through family, but he had a really tough time, which led to one of his first retirements and into baseball. Yeah. He had a really tough time with the newspaper articles, and they were going after him. And if that forced him to quit, there'd be no way that with his mindset, he could survive in today's game if all the same things happen. So apply the same factors that made him great and apply his whole entire timeline. Now shift it over to the new millennium and starting in 2000, which is right around the time he actually retired from the Wizards. But so apply it to now. And he was so shook up by the words of other people. It really fired him up to do great, but it was a mental battle with him. And he also had a problem with the front office too. Yeah. Which I don't know. All the players seem to have a problem with the front office in today's game, and so I just think that it hinted on if he was in the NBA today, I don't think he would have held up well. Not as far as competition. I think when it comes to competition and physical attributes, Michael Jordan's the dude. But when it comes to mentality, mental stability, I don't think he was. Yeah, and that's why I have hats off for LeBron James, dude. He goes through all that shit.
Yeah. I mean, I think that again, this is just because of watching this documentary and like seeing like how he reacted to certain things. I think that if he was, during this day and age, if he was in his prime, I think because of his drive and his work ethic, that he probably would have pushed a lot of that to the side. Like, hey, I'm not on social media. I'm hardly on the news. I'm just doing my thing. And that seemed to be kind of his thing is like, he didn't care what was going on. Yeah, of course it's going to take a toll because you're still going to hear, little things here and there of what's going on. And, on top of, having the team on your shoulders pretty much. I think he would still do pretty well. But again, I do see your point, and for sure, LeBron is definitely one of those. But at the same time, it's still a very different player. So that does play different into things because, like, again, if you're in that game and you've got that mindset of LeBron James, I think that's why he's able to handle the things of now versus he doesn't have the same winning mentality, I think, as Jordan did. And that's not a dig on him. I'm not saying that he doesn't want to win because, of course, we all do. And I'm sure he probably does way more than most of us. I think it's just a very different drive. It's like if you put them side by side, they're going to have a good amount of space between them on how they go over the same obstacle.
Yeah, no, I think there's clearly a mentality difference. But as far as a physical thing, like you put Michael Jordan in his prime up against LeBron James in his prime or LeBron James now, and I still think Michael Jordan edges him, but it's a close game. I think the dudes are superhuman. I think they know basketball better than most, even in the NBA. But, I think Michael Jordan was a freaking alien, bro. Like, he was some of the stuff that he started and some of the things that he did, the points that he put up in games, like, it speaks for itself in that documentary. Oh, my thing was, yeah. I just think, like, the one thing that stood out to me in that documentary was how much, like, the press got to him. And I'm like, dude, if that press then was getting to him, oh my God, could you imagine now? Because it's 1,000 times worse.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
1,000 times crazier.
No, and I agree with you there. And again, another thing that I think is that the reason why he was such a outcast or alien, if you will, of how he was approaching the game on, each game was his last. I think he was bringing that type of new mentality of pushing yourself to the NBA during the 90s. And I think that's why we see the players that we see now today. So, like, when you say, like, LeBron James versus Jordan would be a very close call, I 100% agree. It could be even almost a tie because now a lot of the players of, today, they have more of that drive that I think Jordan brought to the NBA. And again, I'm not a huge sports guy. This is just doing a lot more research after watching this documentary and seeing, like, the up-close interactions. So it's very, different because, I've seen all the arguments online of like, oh, well, who would win in a one-on-one, James versus Jordan or even Kobe Bryant versus Jordan. And it's like,
well, it's such a funny debate because you'll never have an actual answer ever. So it's just to argue about. Yeah. Literally, that's the only one. You'll never have the answer. Like
it's stupid. But hey,
even as not a sports fan, I think you can agree that documentary pumps you up to watch some basketball or even like go look up the old games that he played.
Oh, 100%. I'm already starting to find out like what the schedule is just to. Because I think basketball, that based on the documentary, made me want to like, okay, you know what? There's a reason why to watch this game. There's a lot more that goes into it than I've maybe seen with football or anything else like that. But sports are back.
I get it.
What do you think so far?
Sports are back.
I haven't seen any of the games yet, but I know that they're doing a lot of like social distancing and guidelines for stuff, which is ridiculous.
I've watched a few games, a few MLB games, a few, about one or two basketball games. Not the whole things, but just kind of in and out watching them. And I've seen a ton of UFC cards. And the one thing that's weird is like no fans in the stands, right? Mm-hmm. Well, let's go to UFC real quick. And it's like, man, it's kind of eerie watching the UFC cards these days because like you hear everything in there and there's so much silence. And the one thing I dig is when somebody hits somebody, man, like you almost feel it through the TV, man. Like you hear that thud. I think one thing that's really cool is like you can hear all the coaches and everything they're saying, and then you watch their fighters like apply it, and that's pretty cool because like I used to spar and I used to do all that stuff, but like never like really with a coach in my ear like saying that. So it was like hearing like these coaches like say like oh he's not hitting with his left hand's hurt, and the guy's like shying away from his left hand because like I don't know he did something to it when he threw a punch, and then they go and attack it. It's like I wonder if that ever worked before because it was so noisy with the attendees, right?
That's a good point.
In the crowd. Yeah, so it's like I don't know if this person's better or they just have more resources now because there's not so much shouting in the ring. It's really silent, but you can hear the coaches and you can hear the commentators like giving their opinions.
I wonder if it's a dual blade on that too, because like when you're in that kind of environment or ring, when you hear the roar of the crowd, like you're focusing on your opponent for sure, but you've got this kind of wall around you, and yes, you're in a ring, but that wall of sound that's around you kind of isolates you of where you're at versus when there's no one there. It's so quiet that all you hear is, the movement of you and your opponent's feet. You hear your coaches and the announcers going off. And I wonder how that plays into things, like how different it is.
Well, I mean, I know we talked about this on a previous podcast, but I think that's the main reason why you got Conor McGregor that took a retirement. I don't know if he's coming back, but I think that's the reason you see it is he was never the fighter to fight in an empty crowd. And so I don't know if it's weird. I don't know if it's better fighters now because they're like, okay, no distractions. I get laser focused. Or there's worse fighters because they're like, man, I really fed off the crowd. Like when I got hit, like they were chanting my name, I actually got back up. You know, who knows?
Right.
But it's definitely a different thing. I dig it because it's more of like an intimate, like, okay, these dudes are really battling. Like, it's not really a crowd to show off in front of. This is a fight. And like you kind of feel that when you watch it. And then I watched some baseball, and it's really weird because there's like cardboard cutouts of people behind the umpire and stuff.
What?
Like to where it's like they're trying to like fill in fake fans. Not only do they have fake fan noise, which is just weird because no one's there, but you're still hearing it.
I read an op-ed that someone thinks in like 10 to 15 years that baseball is going to be a lot less popular and even go down just based on attendance and sales and stuff like that, and because of the type of sport it is versus something like basketball or football or even soccer where there's basically almost constant movement. I mean, think about it. Like when we do like barbecues over a baseball game, you're talking with, at least the ones that I've been to, you're talking with someone, you're eating, maybe you're playing a game or having a drink or whatever it is. Like you're watching the highlights of the game almost, within a 15-minute, quarter or whatever it is. You're watching snippets here and there to see what's happening, but are you fully watching it 100%? So I wonder if that's going to play into things at all, in the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah, I will say, man, baseball to me is a lot like soccer or hockey. Like when you're there, it's the funnest game ever.
Yeah.
But when you're watching it on TV, it's a little different, and you can be like, because it's really all about that dopamine release, like in your brain. You're like, oh my gosh, constant action in football, constant action in basketball, and then it's a lot slower when it comes to the other sports, like as far as scoring, because that's really what people want to see. They want to see the knockout. They want to see scores, runs batted in, and they want to see goals like in soccer. And when those aren't really happening and you get those 1-0 final score games, then yeah, you can be like, oh, I'm probably not going to tune in for the next one because that wasn't really fun.
Right.
Well, it's like, well, your definition of fun is like a shootout, but you'll get that in a fast-paced sport like basketball and football,
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of your taste, man. I don't know if that's a factual article, but I don't know if it's not because
it was just more like a hypothetical.
Been around.
And I know that because baseball is, like America's favorite pastime or almost the official sport.
They better take bourbon with it if they kick out MLB.
God, hell no, like that's not happening anytime soon.
I know, dude, you would cry.
I would be so sad. I'm like, wait a minute, just bring it back. I take back everything I said.
I love
baseball doesn't suck at all.
It doesn't suck. No, I get it. I totally get it, though. It's America's pastime. I think it'll be here. They also are like the richest company out of all other sports. I mean, go look at a contract in the MLB.
I was going to say, don't they have some of the highest contracts around?
Oh, yeah, by far. But, I mean, Patrick Mahomes just broke that for the NFL.
Yeah, so that was cool.
$500 million or whatever.
That.
But that's one dude. I mean, like that one, there's like a lot of those contracts in the MLB. Probably not that much, but around that same ballpark. Pun intended.
I'm sure that the lowest MLB player gets close to, some of the mid-tier NFL players. Like, who is it? Someone just got signed, I think, by the not the Buccaneers, by New York, and like I think they're for a quarterback contract, and it was like $1 to $2 million. It was something stupid low that I was like, you guys got him on a jackpot or something.
Yeah, I mean, think about it.
I think it was Dak Prescott. Not Dak Prescott. It was someone I saw in the news.
Dak Prescott's not even waking up for less than $1 million.
Yeah,
like he wants an absurd amount of money from the Cowboys, but I don't think he's that good. So come at me, Cowboys fans.
So something else to take out. So with all sports coming back, but in a limited capacity, pretty much. And since we honestly don't know as a whole, like when this COVID stuff is going to die down to the point where it's semi-normal again, a lot of players have decided they're not coming back yet. I saw that Mike Leake from the Diamondbacks and Ryan Zimmerman with the Washington Nationals, they've decided they're not coming back to play yet. So
yeah, I'm a Packer fan, and we had a big wide receiver that we signed in the offseason opt out because of COVID and stuff. So I think it's interesting you brought this up. My thing is like you're starting to see players opt out and they're just getting free money to sit. I mean, it's kind of smart, right? Like,
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I don't have to get. Well, think about the caveat. The caveat is like, okay, I don't have to get hit and almost get paralyzed or get a concussion, and I don't have to catch this potentially harmful disease. But I can get free money and sit out on my butt and watch these people play. Okay, yeah I'm gonna opt out. You know, it's like it's a no-brainer, and I think the more people you see doing that, which, dude, it's in their contract, it's totally
a free market.
Their right.
You're totally entitled to do that if you want to do that.
And so if they do that, and you start to see more people do it, I think all this does is get closer to a NFL season not being a thing. And there's a lot of people that are saying that too, you know, that kind of support that. But I truly believe, like, if everyone starts opting out and you get a majority rules here, I think they might just shut it down, dude, for the season. You know? Yeah,
and I wonder like how that's going to affect, you know, the players that are opting out, if they're still going to maintain, you know, a physique or training for when things come back.
We're seeing it. Yeah, we're seeing it now with basketball. So I had that same exact thought about basketball because it's such a cardio-heavy sport.
Right.
And I was like, these dudes are sitting around on their butt for like 2 days. Even just one day, maybe they just needed to relax. But if they're like just loafing around for majority of the time they are off, you're going to see it on the court. And lo and behold, dude, you got teams coming out like my Houston Rockets. They're coming out swinging, dude, and they're coming out looking really good. So it's like, I think when you're an athlete and you're a professional athlete, you're getting paid millions of dollars. I don't think those teams, one, allow you not to be checked in on, allow you not to like report, and also I don't think when you're making that much either, that and you're a star on the team, I don't think you want to come out loafing, you know, because again, you're so accountable to one, a gigantic team, but also social media is going to clown you, and a lot of people don't like that. So it's like everyone's kind of looking,
for sure. And with all the amount of players and staff that I've seen that have gotten, you know, tested positive for COVID, I'm kind of curious, like, okay, if you have a majority of the team that they shut down, but say, you know, some other of the teams, they didn't get shut down because they didn't have any tested or whatever it is, and they compete and they win, you know, a final or whatever it is. I wonder how that's going to affect the teams that felt like they were left behind, and how the NFL is going to address that. If they're going to get the chance to make it up, or if they're like, hey, man, it's tough luck. I'm sorry your players, you know, weren't up to it, or whatever the case is.
I feel like it's the tough life thing because that's just how I see the NFL working these days. I don't know. It's just how I feel, man. I feel like there wouldn't be really any remorse about it. So, but who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows, man? At least we have sports back, is all I'm saying. At least sports are here. They're weirdly presented right now because of, you know, no fans, but they're here. And
I look it out from an outside perspective. Nice. It's a part of the culture that we need to come back to get to a somewhat sense of normalcy. Even if no one's there in the stands, we can at least go turn it on, you know, on CBS or whatever it is, and watch a game like, okay, hey, with all the crazy crap that just happened, you know, people still losing their jobs, still trying to figure out how they're going to pay rent or whatever it is. Like, I can turn on the game and feel, you know, for at least for an hour, you know, a sense of normalcy.
Well, and that's how it always was, man. That's why football for the longest time, if not forever, always being on a Sunday, man. It was always the weekend. Everyone was off, you know, if you were working just the regular type of job. And it seemed like the get-together day to watch the team and forget about all of the hardships in life for at least 3 hours until it was over, and then it was back to reality, you know? And that's kind of the beauty of sports, but that's also kind of the thing that we all got addicted to, is it was the break from reality, like sports were. But I think we got caught up too much in that to where that became reality and it was just all about sports. I mean, myself included. Before I started doing this podcast probably 2 years ago, I couldn't have told you anything about a bill in Washington, D.C. I couldn't have told you about anything like research worthy. I was just really up in sports. I knew everything about sports, but it was like, well, hey, man, I mean, that's cool, but are you in sports broadcasting? I'm like, no. Do you do anything with sports? No. Well, it's like,
you just know a bunch of stats.
More power to you. You just know a bunch of shit about sports, you know? It's like, cool. It's like,
you're the guy that I would text like, hey, man, this is going on. What do you think?
Yeah, and I would have all the answers for you on sports, but now it feels nice to be a little bit more balanced on things to where, like, sports haven't really essentially taken a back seat, but they're not, like, the first and foremost where it's everything I think about. I can't wait till Sunday. I'm just letting the hours go by so I can watch that next Packer game. And it's just like, no, I'm living life now. So I feel like that happened for a lot of people in this pandemic, like put it into fruition, like the important things in life. And I think everyone's kind of responding to that. But it is nice to have sports back. But everyone's like, dude, we kind of had a bad relationship before.
Yeah.
So now we're going to have to take this slow, sports. You know, stop touching me there, sports, because it's not good.
Yeah.
Just kidding. But anyway, there's a sex trafficking ring.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so that okay, for anyone who has been keeping up with the Epstein-Maxwell conspiracy or pandemic, whatever you want to call it,
Miss Epstein.
Quick backstory, and
I don't know. I don't know why the world doesn't address her as that.
Miss Epstein.
Yeah, because you even go out there and you say Miss Maxwell. Everyone's like, who the hell's Miss Maxwell? And then you say Miss Epstein, and everyone's like, oh, that bitch.
Yeah, I know. And it's like, guys, y'all know. Like, why don't you just call it for what it is? Y'all are trying to be respectful at the most unneeded time right now. Just call her for what she is. I mean, she's a sex trafficker.
Dude, straight up, man. And so, have you seen? Oh, maybe you're.
I was going to do a quick recap for anyone who's listening right now. Is basically Maxwell or Miss Epstein was arrested. Was it last month or a couple months ago? And anyway,
yeah, she was apprehended.
Right.
Then, yeah.
So they've set a trial date for about the same time, 2021, next year. But recently, about a week and a half ago, a judge ruled to release a bunch of, is it depositions? Is it just depositions?
It's just basic. Yeah, no. It's just unsealing all the documents, and depositions are in there, but it's just unsealing all the documents that are on the table for what she's up against.
I couldn't
That's essentially what
get
it is.
a clear answer of what all was going to release. Yeah, a bunch of documents on the Epstein case.
Pretty much everything in the case is in there. Everything from that case right now. So.
Okay, and so a few days ago, it's been officially released. Now, there is some redactions, but the funny thing about this, and I don't know if you know this, Pat, they are speculating that it was just the lawyers themselves who redacted a bunch of stuff, and not the type of redaction where, from a text standpoint, that it's actually redacted. So some people were like pulling the entire document, putting like a notepad, and they were able to see the redactions, which is crazy.
Whoa, that is crazy.
And so
I haven't seen those.
Yeah, I haven't been able to get that same point, but I've seen the side by sides. But pretty much like from a in the legal community, when you're the lawyer, you're normally not the ones doing the actual redaction. Like, you send that down to either your tech department or someone that they specialize in doing it, because there is a certain way you have to do it, so it's actually redacted and not, actually readable by putting it in another program. So they're speculating that the lawyers themselves did it for whatever oddball reason. But anyway, now that you guys are caught up, let's go and talk about it, because it came out a few days ago. I haven't had a chance to read the entire way through. I just started reading the first, 30 pages today, and kind of reading some summaries on some other people that posted about it. But what do you think about this so far?
Well, first off, I think that when you get a chance, and this is to the listener as well as Micah, is like, if you get a chance to read these documents, let me just say that I'm up to page 685.
Good God.
This thing is 2,024 pages long. It's going to take some time to go through, but what I have seen through there are like the flight logs. I want to say Virginia Guffrey, that the woman that's suing against them for her getting sexually abused by many people on their account. She's the one fighting them. Miss Maxwell, Miss Epstein's the one defending herself. So anyway, what I have seen in there is just a bunch of like pretty hard to read things that they did to her. A lot of this, too, from what I'm finding out, it was covered in that Epstein documentary. Virginia makes an appearance, I want to say, in like episodes like 1 through 4, maybe if not all
I
the
think
way
she
through.
does most of them from what I remember.
Yeah, and so what most of the stuff just from her account on that documentary is stated inside of these documents. Now, I had to find that out the hard way because I'm on page 685. So it's going to take a while to get through this. And when I say I'm on page 600 plus, I probably skipped a few pages like on the way. It's just a lot to read.
Really
so I need
is,
to like...
Yeah.
But I'm thankful that it's there. It's just going to take time on my part to like not get obsessed with it and chase that rabbit. But I'm gonna. But there's a lot of people out there doing the legwork for you. So this is where things like Reddit are cool. This is where things like private messages on Instagram and Facebook are cool. But you can also go to Twitter, and Twitter's an uproar in this right now with people posting a lot of opinions on all these documents too. So you can take their word for it. My favorite thing about it is that if they're lying about it, you literally have the proof in your hand. So if they're citing a page and they're citing the information, you can go look it up and see if they're right or wrong. So you don't have to play this, oh, they're just lying.
Right.
They're a QAnon. They're in the cabal game. Like, you don't have to do that.
So the biggest thing that I've seen in this document so far, and again, I've been skimming it and kind of reading some summaries, again, like you've mentioned, like through Reddit and through some other forums, is that Clinton was actually there. She confirms that, you know, for the longest time, Clinton denied that he was on the island at all, even though he was on the flight logs for, what, like 23 or 27 times, something like that. So she can.
I can't believe people are allowing that to be an excuse. They're like, "Oh, I believe him." It's like, or why anybody is surprised that this is coming out. It's like, in the documents, just so people know, it says that Bill Clinton was there with 2 underage girls on Epstein Island. So,
And
now here's the I don't know. Maybe you can clarify this, Micah. Was that from Virginia or was that from Jelaine?
that Clinton was on the island with those 2 girls.
Yes, because it's from one of them.
It's from what I remember and what I'm read. It's from Virginia. Now the thing about that is, and it sucks because you still have to have a an overall viewpoint when you're reading these documents and how you're understanding them. Because you're like, oh well, let's just go and put her in jail. Okay, but we still have a legal system that we have to kind of sift through. Is that he was there on the island and he was with the 2 underage girls. But she doesn't. I don't think she actually saw anything happen between them, because like the verbiage in the depositions that I've read so far is not specific on, you know, whether he actually did something, whether she actually saw him. I haven't read anything so far that says like, hey, I would personally had to do anything sexual related to Clinton. So I'm hoping that it's somewhere in there. If not, really the only thing it's going to do is going to place Clinton on the island. And I know that no one wants to hear that, but again, guys, you have to think about this somewhat from a legal standpoint, because, you know, whether in a court case, they have to be able to tie someone to something in order for it to be true. Otherwise, we can speculate all they want, but the only thing that we have evidence-wise, whether we believe, you know, whether we know it's true or not, is that he was only on the island with 2 underage girls, but they were just hanging out.
Yeah.
Which sucks, dude. It's like
just hanging out. For sure.
No. And for sure, it's not true that he just hung out with them. But, you know, from a legal standpoint, I mean, that's why you know, what's his name, Epstein got off by so much, because they weren't able to tie a bunch of things, and on top of, you know, higher ups just, you know, clowning the case for some stupid reason.
Yeah, no, you're right. So, yeah, I mean, we got to trust in the judicial system right now with everything they're doing with this. But, I mean, it's cool that all of the documents are there.
I was really surprised that happened, too.
Well, I think this judge, I think it has a lot to do with our previous episode where I talked about Judge Esther Salas and the murder of her 20-year-old son, Daniel. You know, by the FedEx guy dressed up as a FedEx employee.
Have we seen anything else from that
Dude,
that thing?
I have been following that story, and it has been crickets. It's so weird.
Interesting.
I've been following, and if anybody's hearing this, I've been looking up this story, and I'm getting the same exact articles that I already had last week. So if anybody's got new, fresh stuff, one, where are you finding it? Two, send it to me. And,
we really want to know about that.
You can email us at wearetheguiltyparty@gmail.com. Send us all your stuff. Like, we want to see it.
Have you seen anything?
It only helps
Have you
us.
seen anything if she's been accused from the case, if it's been reassigned to someone else?
No, I haven't seen anything on that. Now, I don't know if that's later in the thousands of unread pages that are coming up for me. Okay. But it could be in there. But this is also something that everybody's following. So I feel like the updates are going to be coming out of the woodwork for this, especially leading up to November. Because, dude, Jelaine is a huge component to what goes on in these elections. I mean, she has the power to out names. Like, it doesn't matter what party they're on, dude. If they were involved and she has the power to prove it and out names, I mean, tell her she's got immunity and then take it back. Like, after it's done. Here's a not a thought. Here's a potential outcome that could be happening, a speculation, if you will. I think she's waiting to see who wins the November election. And the reason I say that is, okay, let's just say that for the sake of argument that Trump was on the island and that maybe he did something, whatever it is, that he has evidence on her. I'm sorry, that she has evidence on him. So let's say right now that she's like, hey, if you give me immunity, I'll go and hold you off on the names when I release this document, whatever it is. Okay, that happens. But then let's say Biden wins in November. That means nothing. That means she's screwed because she outed him already and somehow he skirted by or whatever it is. And then she's going to jail or gets killed, whatever it is. On the flips, dude, that was the first thing I thought when I saw that her trial was postponed until a year. That's from now, the only thing. Or a year from that date. Yeah, like that was the first thing I thought. Is like, I mean, she's literally the key to a lot of. I mean, we all know without knowing, but we all know that there's some shady shit going on at a really high level, in that she is literally the key holder to the names that we're trying to prosecute in this. I mean, and I say we as humanity, trying to take down this evil sex ring. And so she's a major component to it. And so you're right, man. I mean, she has said, and I've even brought this up in previous episodes, that, she's got video on two prominent politicians having sex with underage minors. And so, I mean, like that right there alone, that hits in November. I mean, dude, I think it's all gearing up for that. I think it's exactly why her trial is in June or July of next year.
Yeah, and I think that she's going to wait until, let's say, whoever wins in November. Let's assume that Trump doesn't try and push the election or doesn't try and just stay in office. Let's just say whoever wins in November. I could see her releasing that information, or at least partial stuff, to the FBI, whoever's the main person or department that's investigating her, and they move the trial up. Because let's just say you're one of the top FBI agents on the case. You're like, okay, I've got a year to sift through all this stuff. The election comes, whoever wins, whether it's Trump or Biden, and then she releases information on, let's just say, Clinton, 20 other. Let's just say it's to Clinton and a few other politicians. You get that information. You're like, hey, this is gonna put my my career on the map. And we can't pretend that any of us who are in that position wouldn't want to do the same thing. We're going to try our best to get that that trial moved up. We're going to find some judge that is wary to our case or that believes it partially, and they're going to at least try to move it up, I think, until spring.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that for sure. I mean, dude, it's all interesting. I mean, like, it's kind of like, I don't know, this is kind of like the new sport, right? Everything that's going on with her, it's like this, dude, I didn't even know who Epstein was 2 years ago.
I don't think I did either.
Now this thing, yeah, and I don't think anybody really did, not even his own next door neighbor in Florida.
Which is
like, wasn't he like someone well known? You were saying? Yeah,
it's James Patterson. He's a New York Times bestselling author.
Yeah, he didn't even know who was living next door to him. I mean, this guy was super secretive. Now he's the poster boy for abusing women and trafficking women, both minors and not minors. And his wife is now known as the Madam. I mean, in these reports too, Virginia was saying that she would have orgies with these girls, and then she would, solicit them and tell them what to do afterwards, pay them, drop them off, or send them on their way, and then she'd follow up with you for basically a recall or letting you know, like, hey, you need to move on from here, and you just need to get over it and go to parties and be in the social scene again and just act like it never happened. Like, she was also like following up. So if not really important to Jeffrey Epstein's sexual obsession, she was like the ringleader, like helping it, like the follow-up person, the solicitor, that make them feel good, the one that would pay them. I mean, dude, she's worse in my opinion.
I 100% agree with you. And again, not to sidetrack, but here's another thing that I've thought about. Because technology is so important in this day and age, I mean, we know from facts from FBI court documents and from this documentary that he had a whole bunch of, cameras set up to hard drives and everything like that. How has no one brought forth the person who set all this stuff up and who's maintaining it?
Because they're probably dead.
Yeah, you could be right. I don't see him being the only one who knew how to set up everything. I mean,
oh no,
you can't tell me that on his island he didn't have a ton more cameras set up in just the spots that they say they have video of. And it's like, okay, where did that go? Was it just offboarded to a single hard drive and kept with someone? Was it sent to the cloud? Where it is it just some on random a random iCloud account that no one's just found yet? I mean, can you imagine if WikiLeaks like just happened to break into the wrong iCloud account, like, holy shit, this is Epstein's hard drive with all this nasty crap that he had going on.
Well, so how I can prove that was in that documentary, with the Epstein documentary, when they went to the island, pedophile island, as I like to call it, there's a huge tower out there sending signals, a huge one. So you had Wi-Fi, you had all types of signals coming in. So there's no way that whole, I mean, and his thing was to blackmail you, to have you have sex with this underage girl so he had snot on you, and then use it against you so he could maneuver his tactics. That same thing was going on out there, just at a way grander level. It's like, well, let me take you to the island, because that's where this is where it really happens. And then you got a whole list of people. Dude, I haven't made it to the flight logs yet, but the flight logs that are going to be brought up in these documents, that'll finally solidify the actual ones, because there's been photoshopped ones out there. Yeah, I swear, like, the list keeps getting longer. Yeah. So when I make it to that, those are actually the flight logs that are in the depositions. Like, that's going to be huge, because now we'll know the official names, because there's been so much chatter about, oh, this person's name's been eradicated from the list, and it's like, well, now we'll see the official names that are being held in court, or not held in court, but brought up.
Yeah, and
that's going to be a huge breakthrough.
Listen, I'm all about, I love a good conspiracy. I think they're fun. I think they're great. I think there's a very fine line on what you believe is true on that and what takes you into a rabbit hole. But it's very curious, too, that all these exposing organizations like WikiLeaks, or the newest one, was it QAnon? Yeah, QAnon. QAnon and WikiLeaks, and I think Anonymous and a couple others, that I really haven't seen any chatter from them about this. And I know everyone's, I've heard the conspiracy of, like, oh, well, they're waiting to do the big reveal. I'm like, why do y'all keep doing this big reveal?
Dude, I keep hearing about that. That you're I'm glad you brought that up. There's supposed to be this big reveal. Like, I keep hearing about this all over social media, in Reddit's, like, the big reveal. And I'm like, what the hell is this?
To be honest, I don't believe it. And here's the thing. Like, we live in a opportune society. This isn't something where you see the next day, like, one of the rare things was when we saw that Epstein, was arrested. Well, it wasn't out of nowhere. It was, years and years of them trying to nail this dude. And so when you're talking to me about a big reveal at the end of the thing, like here's a conspiracy if no one knows about this, that I've heard that QAnon is pushing, is that Trump is this big, he's going to expose the entire pedophile ring and all this stuff. I've seen the conspiracy videos. I've seen all the tiebacks too. But I'm like, listen, from a person who normally is going to build up to something like that, whether it's in politics or something else, I don't see an indication with him acting up the way that he is that he's going to do this big reveal. It's not like, hey, we're working on attacking sex trafficking here in the United States, and then all of a sudden the next day, like, hey, we found out based on this new information that we've been doing in our case that there's going to be a huge arrest. That's the only,
if there is. Yeah, because we can't say no and we can't say yes. Like, I'm totally with you. It's like, I don't know if there's going to be this big reveal, but if there is, and just hear me out for a second, if it does happen and there's this grandiose big reveal of somebody getting proven to do something or whatever it is, it's going to happen in November. That's all I'm saying. Like, that, it's the only month for it to strike, because that's when all hell goes down, because the number one mission from the DNC, and like you stated before, is take down Trump. Even if it's Joe Biden who's sniffing kids publicly on stage at the podium during all this sex trafficking, we still need to get Trump out of there. So it's like, okay, if there's this big reveal going to happen, and this your whole statement and this mission for the DNC too is to take down Trump, it's got to happen in November, because if QAnon is the counterpart to the cabal, then QAnon is stating that Trump is the savior and cabal is saying that Trump's the enemy. That's tying into this conspiracy thing, just using their terminology. Yeah. Then it has to happen in November, because if you were dead set that Trump's the enemy, then you're not going to allow him to do anything to get 4 more years of power again, and vice versa. If you think Trump is the savior, you're not going to allow anybody to touch him or hurt him having another 4 years of power in this country.
I agree. And here's the thing about Trump. I really feel like that he's only got 2 chances of winning this election. One, based on all the social culture stuff we've had, with the Black Lives Matter movement and all the deaths and killings we've had over the last couple of years, especially with George Floyd. I think that he either has to, in October, November, either right before the election or whatever it is, bring out some ginormous plan of how he's going to fix things. Because right now we really haven't seen too much. I mean, it's the same thing that Biden says, like, hey, we want to have change. I'm like, yeah, of course we do. But what change are you talking about? So
we want to do stuff. Yeah.
We want to do stuff. That's great.
We want to do stuff. All right, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's like he's got to do something for that. Or, like you mentioned in this conspiracy from QAnon, is that he's going to do this big reveal that, hey, we have evidence that there is a sex trafficking ring here in the United States, and here are the culprits, and we've already sent out arrests, or we've already made arrests from all these people. I think that's the only thing that it boils down to. He's either got to do one of those 2 things, or maybe he might just do the same thing he's doing right now and just pander to his base, just like Biden is doing, and it'll be another close call like it was, 4 years ago. Or man,
do you know?
Here's another thing, and here's an opposing view. If nothing happens, let's say Biden wins, no one is going to believe QAnon for the rest of their existence. And 2, they're going to start questioning a lot more, and I hate to use this, but right-wing conspiracies. Because like right now, everyone is convinced if you believe a little bit in conspiracies, that QAnon is on the right side, and they're right that there's this big reveal in November. But what if it doesn't happen?
Yeah, then you're exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's going to be, no matter what, some side is going to lose come November, because either Trump wins the election, Trump doesn't win the election. I mean, it's very simple to put it that way, but what I mean is there's a bigger picture in the background. Like, no matter what, even if there's not this reveal, then it's like all these people and all this file sharing and all this conspiracy and all this crazy shit that everyone's put themselves through and also been put through.
Right.
And then nothing happens. I think that angers some people. That's why I think something's going to happen. Now, if it's this big reveal, I think it's just being put up on a pedestal too high. I think something's going to happen. And at whose expense, I don't know. But I just hope justice prevails and that the wrong people go down. And I don't care what party they're tied to. I'm not tied to any party. And I feel like we got to stop getting tied to parties and start getting tied to policies and doing things that we actually want to see through. Now, if we debate on that and it's not just like, oh, you're left or you're right, then I think we start making progress and you start talking about, oh, you know what's wrong with you supporting that policy? And it's like, okay, now we're making progress here. It's not like, you know what's wrong with you being Republican? You know what's wrong with you being a leftist? Y'all are all just peds. Or it's like you right-wingers are all just a bunch of Christians and you don't believe in dinosaurs and shit, you know? It's like,
no.
I
That's a good point. I really like that. It should be more on the actual policy and of what the discussion is about rather than the label of left or right or red versus blue. It should be like, hey, why do you believe that way? Because, again, I've always thought at the core, if you had an honest conversation, like there's no microphones around, it's just you and another person, they have no worry about what someone might overhear and think. I think that we are a lot more common than we would like to believe. Because, you know, we've all seen, like you and I, we've seen those YouTube videos where they try to bring a group together. But you have to keep in mind, like, everyone is going to see that. And at the end of the day, we still, as human beings, somewhat care of what someone else thinks of us. No matter how much you say you don't, there's a small part of you that does. But I bet if we had more private conversations or just conversations in general that weren't like publicized, like we're doing this as a community and as citizens and just as people, I think we're a lot more centrist than we would care to admit. Like, we would agree on things like, hey, you know what? You believe this. I may not believe that, but I also believe this other thing that we share a common interest with, which is interesting because it's like that's what we need to have more of. I mean, again, you and I, there's stuff that you and I don't agree on, but there's a lot of things that we do agree on. And, you know, even though we might be considered, you know, a certain political party, whatever it is, we have varying degrees on how much we are on either side of that side.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing is like, when did it get to the point where I don't agree with you that therefore I cannot be your friend? Like, this has become a new norm here, and me and you break that all the time. It's like, we don't have to agree on everything because at the end of the day, life goes on, and me and your opinion, like not matching up is not the end all be all of things. We're having an open discussion. And I think that's the beauty in disagreeing with somebody you know, is because we're all different. So it gives you a chance. It's like that Jocko Willink podcast saying, good. When there's adversity, good. It gives you a chance to think outside the box on a certain issue. I mean, dude, me and my wife are a great example of that. We disagree on a lot of things, but you know what? Like, she hears me out on things and I hear her out on things. And my perspective has shifted since I've been married. Hers has shifted, and it's an equally yoked thing. It's like, okay, not everything's black and white. Let me show you a little bit of the gray area. And it's like, well, I don't agree with your gray area. And it's like, okay, but think about it this way. And I'm like, okay, but think about it this way. And then we do, and then we meet in the middle, or we agree to disagree and move on. It doesn't have to be this, the battle wasn't won that day. I can't get over it. I mean, that's some baby shit, dude, and I see it all over social media.
Oh, yeah, no. Like, and you, dude, that you hit the nail on the head because, like, Becca and I are the same way. I mean, we come from totally different cultures. I mean, I come from an immigrant family, and she comes from a standard white family here in the South and in Texas, you know, and our thoughts have definitely differed over the years, and definitely over the last few years, we've gotten so much better. I mean, even with this stuff, look, because I come from an immigrant background, and because my dad has also, you know, faced racial things, you know, in the early years, like in the 90s and the 80s and all that kind of stuff, I've had certain, you know, views of how things are in life. And Becca's been like, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense because I've never seen that or whatever it is. And like you said, you know, you either agree, disagree, or you figure out, like, how do you meet in the middle so you make the other person understand that's the reason why you think about something the way that you do, and then vice versa. So that's what we need to get back to as a society. Yeah.
It's like, I don't care if you're the smartest person that ever lived on this planet. You still don't know everything about anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, You like be a jack of all trades, but listen better than you talk. Because the ones that just shout in debates, dude, those are the worst ones because they just are so set in their ways that they're not willing to listen or grow. And when you see somebody that's not willing to listen, you see somebody that's not willing to grow. So their debate tactic or their standpoint or mindset is literally limited. So, I mean, when you start listening to that person for the go-to for all your information, you're capped. You're capped at a certain cent because he or she won't grow because they're not willing to listen. I've grown so much just in my ability to be so wrong that I'm not so proud to say I'm sorry. I'm not so proud to say like I know it all. I want to learn. That's why I ask these questions. That's one of the reasons we do this podcast. We reach out to people too.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think it's honestly a new talent to listen, to grow, to try to be better, or to try to, because if you can hear your opponent out on whatever issue it is in the opposing side, if you can hear them out and you can make a counter argument for the other side, it furthers your understanding of that specific issue. And when you start practicing that, your debate tactics get a little better, but also your understanding and your well-spokenness on specific or said issue is way better. It's way better to listen to. It's way better to digest when you tell it to somebody. So it just makes you better, and this is something I've learned over time. But it's something I see on social media. It's like debating on social media with no tone, with just text and stuff. Man, it gets so emotional so quick, and it goes nowhere. And there's always zero progress. And it's almost like I imagine everybody when they get done with that post going, "Okay, well, I guess we'll try again tomorrow." It's like.
That's why I don't say anything. When you do those, I'm like, I'm just gonna sit back and watch. Like, I'm gonna get some popcorn. It's gonna be good. And it always is.
I did make a mistake. Yeah, I did make a mistake on this one. I had somebody on my post. They weren't really debating about the post thing, but I'm a little sensitive when it comes to sex trafficking kids. And so when they were making,
I saw that. Yeah.
They're making jokes on Pizzagate. I did lose my cool, so I was that douchebag for a second because I did go off, and I shouldn't have made it personal because they were just trying to debate right-wing people. They were trying to debate anybody that thinks Pizzagate's real, and they were also getting pissed off because people were getting personal on them. So neither side was right, neither side. But wins at that. We just all got to each other's throat.
And the thing about that, I saw that thread is like that guy was just looking through blurred lenses. Whether you believe in Pizzagate or not, like sex trafficking is a very, very real thing. Like the amount of research that I've looked into this, again, like it's something you hear about, but you kind of take for granted in a sense. And in Texas, like it's a very, very large thing, especially because Texas is a border state. We have a lot of sex traffickers coming through the border, illegally, on top of the stuff that, the ways that I've been hearing of like how they get these young kids or even close to, adults. A lot of times they get them from a battered home or just a crappy situation that they entice them with, like free lodging or food or a better place, and then you get stuck into something. They're like, hey, you're going to do this, and if you don't, we're going to kill you or your family.
Yeah,
it's
man,
so sad.
It's super messed up, and you can see why I was getting sensitive about it. It's like, okay, it's like I don't care if what we're debating on. One, it had nothing to do with anything we were debating on. It was literally just to get a rise out of people, and it got a rise out of me. But I took attention away from the actual discussion. I won't really call it a debate on that post. That post had a lot of very intelligent discussion with doctors on the platform too, hearing from them. It became this really awesome thing. It just had a stupid side to it when it kind of just got emotional and people were just like making fun of like Pizzagate and stuff, right? So I do apologize to the people I went off on that. I did write y'all a thing too on that post, but I still don't think it was cool. But I don't hold any ill will because I actually know those people. They're actually here where I live. And so I know that they were just trying to troll and stuff, but I lost my cool on that. But my point to that was like, okay, debating over Facebook can get really hazy really quick, and it can get emotional really quick. But I had a post that we've been talking about that turned into a really intelligent discussion where I actually learned some things about hydroxyQ that I never knew about. Because you see all these floods of private doctor videos that are coming out where they're urging their patients to take it, where they're asking these questions that you're like, well, wow, yeah, they should be asking that question. And then I take to talk to it and actually hear from some doctors. And I got some really good insight, but not one person on there could tell me why it's okay to censor information that we haven't concluded as being absolutely false. We're just going off of our opinion saying it's false, because the only closest answer I got was a doctor on there saying, well, tests are still being studied right now, and so we haven't got all the concluded evidence back.
Right.
And I was like, cool. So you're admitting that there's not an actual final conclusion on hydroxy Q being detrimental to you defending yourself from COVID-19. And not one person could answer that, but I got to hear like how it could be, but I'm still confused on how hydroxy Q could be an over-the-counter supplement and have that much shit wrong with it that it can potentially do to you. I mean, that's weird, right? That you can just go get it over the counter?
It's not abnormal just because the I don't take medication personally, but I know a lot of people close to me that have, and I've read the side effects and just the stuff that potentials. I mean, like when you see those commercials on TV, they list you the side effects in about 30 seconds. That they, it's like, oh, it could do this, it could do this, it can do that, it can do that, and do that, and like don't really hear it.
That's
right.
But
then you actually look it up, and you're like, should I be taking this? This is stuff my doctor is telling me to do. So it really doesn't surprise me a ton. I think it's just one of those like, hey, at the end of the day, it's a chance. It's like any other type of medication.
Well, it just could be. It could be too. The shit's so potent that it works.
It could definitely cure you. It could kill you, and you don't know, because it's like science is not an exact thing, and I think people forget that. It's like, hey, we hope for the best based on what we see and look in front of us, but there's always stuff beneath the skin. I think that God created us in such a way that you're never gonna fully understand the human body. And so at the end of the day, we hope for the best. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, man, it's, I think that you just have to stick with your decision that you stuck with. If you wanted to go ahead and do it, go for it. If not, then, that's up to you. But anyway, we got to wrap this up in a few minutes. And the last thing I want to talk about just for a minute or two is the state of the music industry.
Yes,
Pat, I know that you've been playing a couple shows, the last few weeks. You've been doing some cool stuff over there. I kind of want to talk a couple things and then kind of hear your thoughts before we wrap up. So one,
go for it.
A lot of tours have been canceled for the rest of the year. I mean, the concert industry has already lost close to $9 billion with a B because of this pandemic. Along that, we've been kind of seeing like, hey, well, where's music going right now? And we've kind of seen that streams have been the way to go for music. Streams have gone up during quarantine and during this pandemic. I think it's due just because people are at home more and there's not as much to do, so they're putting more music on, which is great for the bands if they're making any money from this, because I know a lot of bands have lost a lot of money since February. I mean, I just saw that Ryan from Fit for a King, he just posted that they've lost close to $400,000 worth in tours dropped. And like, that's a lot of money, and it's only August. Like, if tours are canceled for the next 6 months, like, what are bands going to rely on for income?
Yeah, it's it's something that touring musicians never really thought would happen. And I know that kind of sounds hard to say, but I mean, we're touring musicians. We never thought this shit was going to happen. Like, to where our industry would just be like based on permission to go back out.
And it sucks because it's like for you, like you right now, you've got an avenue right now with both of us not being associated with the band anymore. I'm at the point where I'm back to where I used to be, and that's the good old hired gun situation. And right now it's like no band is going out, so they can't tell you yay or nay or maybe. It's like, hey, you're just gonna have to wait, man. That's all we're looking at.
Yeah,
and it sucks
exactly.
for a lot of people in my situation that they are hired guns. It's like that was their source of income. Like, now, thank God that it's not for me, but it's like that's the situation that we're in right now.
Yeah, dude. I mean, being a hired gun for you, you hit a sweet stretch. But being a hired gun, it always really comes with its day-to-day updates, because you don't know if you'll be in Spain playing for Nickelback one day, or if you'll just be on the City Rock Fest one other day. You know what I'm saying? For 3 days, you never know. It's like being a hired gun is like you're kind of an on-call, on-deck person. But it doesn't help. It doesn't help the situation now when you got booking agents talking back to their band saying that they don't know what's going to happen. They're just hoping. They're putting out feelers. They're putting out certain bids for things, but then updates keep coming in. And so there was like a couple tours, man. I think they were from like B-slotted bands that were like, they announced something. I saw it on Facebook, but they announced a couple tours. There was like a couple bands that did this, and they were like short runs. They were like 10 shows. And then they were yanked down. So it's like, okay, you could see that booking agents and bands went to book and sign contracts and go that far, and then it's still not pan out.
Yeah. Especially I think.
And so it's like people are attempting to do it, but the follow through is.
I think right now that the most we're going to see for the rest of the year, I think even past December, is we're just going to see a lot of one-offs at the moment. And we're going to see a lot of bands get clever and creative on how to build up some revenue, because at the day that they've got to eat, they got to put pay bills and pay rent and all that kind of good stuff. And the fans want some type of way to interact with their bands.
Well, I think Disciple, our buddies in Disciple, shout out to Joey, Josiah, Kevin, and Andrew sometimes. And well, not shout out to Andrew sometimes, but sometimes he's with Disciple. Anyway, no, I think what they've hinted on is something cool where they're doing these like live, or these like intimate, like streamed live concerts. They just had the People's Choice one, and that's really cool. I think they've hinted on something like that. I think you'll see bands follow suit in that. And start doing these privately paid streamed shows. But it still won't be the 100% answer to it, but it is a get-by remedy. Now, what do I think the 100% remedy, or the 100% answer to the quarantine-type tours are going to be? Dude, I really don't know, man. It's new. It's a new horizon for this industry, for sure. I think you'll see a lot more studio music being made right now. I mean, you just had the CEO of Spotify come out and say, you can't just, a surviving band can't just put out an album once every 3 or 4 years. Like, you need to consistently be making them. And I don't think anybody really waits that long. Probably some bands do. I think 2 years is like the max that you really want to wait. But yeah, this new normal's, it's trippy for everybody. But I've been fortunate enough, me and my wife have played a couple one-offs where shows are still going on. I mean, they're like festivals, but they're not like consecutive, where you're going to go to this city and this city. They're just kind of sporadic and they're spread out, but it's fine. We got to play 2 shows during this quarantine, and it helped a lot. And so for bands that can't, man, my heart goes out to you. I mean, we didn't do anything special. We just happened to be at the right place at the right time for these shows, and we did them and honored our contracts and got on the road, and for these other bands like Fit for a King, dude, losing $400,000 and only getting $40,000 back in the paycheck protection program. I mean, that's a $360,000 loss, dude. That's heavy. I mean, I don't know how you come back from that. I know they will, because they're a badass band and they've been doing it for forever. But I mean, it's going to be tough, man. But there's one thing with artists that I know and bands is that we're creative, and we're gonna get creative through this, and there'll be something that comes out of it. And then, like everything in the music industry, is when one band starts doing it and it starts working, the flood comes in. You have a bunch of copycats out there.
That's all we can do at this point.
That's all anybody can do.
I think we're all gonna get creative. No matter what type of role you play, at least for the music industry, whether you're just a hired gun or you're in a big, well-known band. I know there's some stuff that, like, even me personally, I'm working on, I'm planning, I'm trying to think, okay, if there's 3 possibilities what's going to happen in the fall, what am I going to be looking at? What can I do right now to build up to a point where not only am I going to hopefully possibly bring in extra revenue in the next, 6 months to a year, from a consistent standpoint. But what else can I do to get my name out there in order to build up my presence? Because right now it's a social media presence. You're either doing some type of social media campaign for new music or new content or whatever it is. I mean, like you said, with the Spotify CEO, I think he's saying that you can't just put out, an album every 3 years. You got to consistently put out new, fresh things, because that's the type of culture that we're in. We want to see things new, and one of the bands that I think has really capitalized on that is Bring Me the Horizon. They haven't put out a record since Ammo, which isn't that old. I think it's like maybe a couple years old or so. But they put out a single last year. They put out another single this year, and that's why they're still staying relevant right now. And they're doing.
Yeah, so I think the album game is over. Like, as far as like putting out an album, I think it's all about like, your album can be good, but there's always that one great song on it,
Yeah.
From every album, or you get one album that's bangers all the way through, but those are rare. And then those go down as legendary albums. Like, dude, I think the last record that we saw that did that was Motionless in White's record. It was a banger all the way through. And now that's my personal opinion, but I mean, I think what it's coming to is the singles game. So it's like you have a single, man. That one single can keep you relevant if it's that damn good of a song for half a year, probably. In some cases, maybe even longer. Where everyone's just jamming that one song, and then you hit them with another one, and cool, you've only spent 3 of your songs in 1 year, then releasing your whole album and giving the whole thing away for $10. You have 3 songs that are out, and you have 7 to back it still, and you can play that game and then keep coming up with more music. And I think it's just a smarter way to generate it, if and only if your singles are kicking ass.
Yeah, I agree.
So I mean, and what the hell do I know, bro? I just play music and stuff. I'm not like one of these like A&R reps, but this is my like personal like opinion. My hot take.
I agree, man. Hey, yeah, I think we covered a lot of topics today. I think it's time for us to wrap it up. I've got to go barbecue with the family soon, and I'm sure you've got a ton of stuff to do. Yeah. But this was a good, man. We covered a lot of great topics. We were able to get through some things and kind of recap on some stories we've been kind of talking about the last few podcasts. Pat, tell.
Dude, it's cool. It's cool that we're on episode 8, man. We're getting closer to 10, and every day we get closer to 1,000.
I agree. Hey, speaking of that, before everyone kind of leaves, I think we need to do the conspiracy episode soon. I think they're a lot of fun. I'm sure people would love to like see some crazy stuff that we can come up with.
Dude, I'm down.
All right, Pat, tell them where you can find us.
All right, guys. Instagram, Facebook, The Guilty Party Podcast. We have an email that you can reach out to us for any personal comments, concerns, questions, or anything you want us to speak about at wearetheguiltyparty@gmail.com. And you can find me and Micah on our personal pages, Facebook or Instagram. I am at the Patrick Madsen. Micah, tell them your name.
Micah Labrosse.
That's on Instagram and Facebook. And so, yeah, you can reach out to us personally. We have the Guilty Party, like I said before, the Guilty Party Facebook and Instagram, too. You can reach out to us anywhere, show your support, leave us a written iTunes review. That always helps this show out. And like always, guys, we love you. We're stoked to bring this content to you. And we're going to be starting a Patreon page soon and a merch line.
Here we go.
Probably going to be making a t-shirt design here in the future. So if you guys want any updates on that, hit us up and show your support for the show, because we're going to love bringing you this content. But love you guys. Episode 8, it's in the books. And Micah, the Cowboys suck.
You're right, honestly. I need a new football team.
Dude, you could always be a Packer fan with me, bro. It's all good.
I may need to, especially like watching the Last Dance, that Michael Jordan documentary. It just got me like, I've never been a huge sports guy, but after watching that, I was like, damn, like I could do this. I could do that. I could be one of the guys.
That documentary team that made that did a really fine job.
I really can't believe they did it as well as they could have, and the amount of footage they found, considering that everything wasn't uploaded in the cloud all the time.
Well, I feel bad for you that you found this new love for basketball and your favorite player is retired.
Yeah, I guess I'll have to go do my own research and find someone else.
Find a new one.
You mean Michael Jordan doesn't play anymore?
He doesn't play, bro. I don't want to ruin it. Just keep finishing the documentary. Just kidding.
All right, y'all. We will see y'all later. Bye-bye.
Love you guys. Bye.